I wanted to sketch this view of a pub by the river in two-point perspective, and with all these repeated windows, it's the kind of subject where perspective really matters. If they all start drifting off and going their own way, it can quickly look a bit unconvincing. My sketches aren't meant to be perfect, we're not being architects here, and people play around with perspective all the time and get really effective, eye-catching results. I tried that myself on a recent workshop in Terrassa. I'm not saying mine's amazing or anything, but you can at least see it was intentional. I wasn't trying to get the perspective right, and it gives it a completely different kind of playful feel. But if your lines are unintentionally all over the place, it can very quickly go from looking expressive to just looking a bit of a mess. So here's a simple technique I sometimes use when I want things to be just a bit more accurate, without overcomplicating it. So the first thing I'll do is work out my eye level line or my horizon line. And there are a couple of ways to help you do this. And the first way is, obviously, it's at your eye level, which gives you a bit of a clue where it is. If you're standing up, it'll be higher. If you're sitting down, it's going to be lower. If you're working from a photograph, it'll be wherever the height of the lens of the camera was when the photograph was taken. Of course, we know that parallel lines never really meet, but when we look at them from the side rather than face on, they appear to converge. Think of the classic example of a railway track. From an angle, lines above the eye level appear to slope downwards towards the horizon line, and lines below appear to slope up. Lines that appear pretty much horizontal are on the horizon line, as the name suggests. So this is your eye level line, and where all the lines intersect is your vanishing point. So all the lines on this parallel plane, like the tops and bottoms of windows, tops of doors, roof line, this awning, will all appear to meet at the same vanishing point when we look at it from an angle. So to find it, you could hold your pencil up against some of the lines to see where they converge. Or you could take a photo and draw the lines in. On the iPhone, there's a markup tool in the photo app. Once we know where the eye level line is, we can decide how far to put it up on our page. There's not much going on in front of this building, so I'm going to put it fairly low down the page. Next, I'll add my vanishing point using the methods I just described. And then I'm just going to simply fan out some pencil lines from the vanishing point. You could do this using watercolour pencil if you didn't want to have to worry about rubbing the lines out later. And then all the parallel lines, like the tops and bottoms of windows, will fall on these guidelines. When I use this method, I usually start the actual sketch with the closest corner to me. And as soon as I've got that in about the right height, I can start filling in the details, like the roof line and the windows and the tops of the doors, using my fanned out guidelines and adding some extra ones if necessary as I go along. The lines on the front of the building are going to a second vanishing point off to my right, and the slight complication here is that it's way off the page. If I was at home, I could just put another sheet of paper or a board underneath and extend the lines out properly. I could even open the sketchbook out and use the other page here, although it's a bit awkward on a breezy day. So instead I'm just going to imagine where it is. As long as I'm aware of it, I don't actually need to see it. They're not perfect, but they'll do the job. And in a way, this is quite good practice because eventually you want to be able to visualise these lines without having to draw them all in. I do need to be a bit careful on this side though, because not all the lines are going to the same vanishing point. You can see these windows on the sides of the bays. They're angled slightly, so they're actually on a different parallel plane. I'm not going to overcomplicate things by introducing another vanishing point just for a sketch, so I'm just going to eyeball these. Now that I've put in the pencil lines for the windows and other details, and it's hopefully looking fairly convincing thanks to those guidelines, I'll go over it in pen. The pen I'm using is a Sailor Fude de Manon with a 40-degree nib and platinum carbon water-resistant ink. Just put in some very light lines to indicate that there are other buildings around, so it doesn't look like it's just stuck in the middle of nowhere. So that's the ink work done, and at this point I could rub out my guidelines if I'd brought an eraser with me. So instead I'm just going to put a light wash on top using the Winsor & Newton pocket filled box, and these are the artist grade paints. And I'm using a Pentel water brush. I'll put links to everything that I'm using in the description. The pub I'm sketching, as you can see, is called the Bristol Arms, and it's at Shotley Gate. And just along here used to stand HMS Ganges, a Royal Navy training base for boys preparing for life at sea. One of the most recognisable features was the mast, which still stands today at around 140 feet high. Every boy had to climb it as part of their training. They'd make their way up through the rigging to the yards, and on certain occasions the whole mast would be manned with boys standing along it. And right at the very top, one would climb even higher and stand on what was called the button, and he was known as Button Boy. Apparently there wasn't even a safety net to start with. Anyway, back to ground level. After being used as a police training centre, it was demolished to make way for a housing estate, but the mast has been preserved. And just along from here there is actually a museum dedicated to the HMS Ganges, which is well worth a visit if you ever happen to be in the Shotley area. I was working on location, as you could see, but as always I'll put the reference photo in the community area, so if you fancy having a go at sketching yourself, please do, and please feel free to share. When I got home, I added a few highlights with a white gel pen, some writing on the blackboard, the pub sign, a few little reflections on the windows here and there, and I darkened up some of the shadowed areas and the windows just to give it a bit more depth. And finally, as it was such a beautiful spring day, I added a splash of blue sky. I hope you found that useful. Thanks for watching and happy sketching!